Single dad got a wrong call at 2 a.m., he showed up anyway, and the heiress asked him to stay forever. It was 2 in the morning when Marcus Thompson's phone lit up the darkness of his tiny apartment. He'd only been asleep for an hour after pulling a double shift at the diner, and his 7-year-old daughter Emma was curled up beside him because the heater in her room had broken again. The voice on the other end was trembling, desperate, begging someone named Robert to please come to Mercy Hospital. His mother had collapsed. She was asking for him. Marcus opened his mouth to explain the mistake, but something in that voice, the raw terror of someone who might lose everything, made him pause. The caller hung up before he could say a word, leaving just an address and a room number hanging in the silent air. Most people would have rolled over and gone back to sleep. After all, wrong numbers happen every day. But Marcus had been on the other side of that kind of fear. He knew what it felt like to sit alone in a hospital waiting room, praying for a miracle that might never come. Before we continue with this incredible story, if you love tales of kindness and the extraordinary things that happen when strangers become family, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for heartfelt moments. Leave a comment below telling us about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like so we can share these moments with even more people. Now, let's get back to Marcus and the decision that would change everything. Marcus looked at his sleeping daughter, her small hand clutching her worn teddy bear, and made a choice that defied all logic. He gently woke his neighbor Mrs. Chen, who'd watched Emma before, threw on his jacket, and drove through the empty streets to Mercy Hospital. He had no idea who he was going to meet or what he would find there. He just knew that somewhere in that building, someone was alone and afraid, and he remembered too well what that felt like. When Marcus walked into room 407, he found an elegant elderly woman lying in the hospital bed, her silver hair spread across the pillow, and a young woman about his age sitting beside her, mascara streaked down her cheeks. The younger woman looked up, confusion crossing her face. "You're not Robert," she whispered. Marcus took a deep breath. "No, ma'am. I'm not. You called the wrong number. But you sounded like you needed someone, and I know what it's like to go through something like this alone." The young woman, who introduced herself as Victoria Ashford, just stared at him. In her world of country club memberships and trust funds, people didn't do things like this. Strangers didn't drive across town in the middle of the night because someone sounded scared. But there was something about this man in his worn diner uniform, with kind eyes and calloused hands, that made her believe in a kind of goodness she'd only read about. Victoria's mother, Catherine Ashford, had suffered a stroke. The prognosis was uncertain, and Robert, Victoria's fiancé, hadn't answered any of her 17 calls. Marcus stayed. He sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, brought Victoria terrible hospital coffee, and listened when she needed to talk. He told her about losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago, about sitting in a room much like this one, watching the only woman he'd ever loved slip away. He told her about Emma, about working 2 jobs to keep them afloat, about how the hardest moments had taught him that showing up was sometimes the most powerful thing a person could do. As dawn broke through the hospital windows, Catherine Ashford opened her eyes. Her recovery would be long, the doctors said, but she would recover. Victoria squeezed Marcus's hand, this stranger who had become something else in the span of a single night. "Why did you really come?" she asked him. Marcus smiled, tired but genuine. "Because 3 years ago, a nurse named Patricia stayed 4 hours past her shift to sit with me when my wife died. She didn't have to. I was nobody to her. But she held my hand and told me I wasn't alone. I guess I've been looking for ways to pay that forward ever since." Over the following weeks, as Catherine recovered, something unexpected blossomed. Victoria found reasons to call Marcus, first to update him on her mother's progress, then just to talk. She met Emma, who was delighted by this kind lady who volunteered to braid her hair and didn't mind that her apartment was small. Marcus met Catherine, who saw in this humble single father a depth of character her daughter's wealthy social circle had never possessed. Robert, when he finally surfaced, had been in Atlantic City with friends, his phone apparently dead for 3 days. Victoria looked at the man she'd planned to marry and realized she'd been settling for someone who wouldn't show up at 2 in the morning, not even for her. She ended the engagement that same day. What happened next surprised everyone, including Marcus and Victoria themselves. It started with coffee dates and trips to the zoo with Emma. It grew into long conversations about life and loss and what really mattered. Catherine, recovering in her mansion that felt too big and too empty, invited them for dinner. Then for Sunday brunch. Then she asked if they'd consider something unusual. 6 months after that wrong number call, Marcus and Emma moved into the guest house on the Ashford estate. Not because Victoria's family was wealthy, but because they'd become family in the truest sense. Catherine had found the grandson she'd never had in Emma, and the son she'd always wanted in Marcus. Victoria had found a partner who defined richness not by bank accounts but by the size of someone's heart. The wedding was small, held in Catherine's garden, with Emma as the flower girl and Mrs. Chen in the front row crying happy tears. Marcus still worked at the diner twice a week because, as he told Victoria, it kept him grounded and reminded him where he came from. Victoria started a foundation providing support for single parents facing medical crises, inspired by the man who'd shown her what true wealth really meant. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right call. Sometimes showing up for a stranger is the moment that changes everything. Marcus had driven through the dark that night because he remembered what it meant to be alone, and he'd decided that if he could spare even one person that pain, it was worth losing a little sleep. Kindness isn't about grand gestures or having resources to spare. It's about showing up when someone needs you, even when you barely know them, even when it's inconvenient, even when the world tells you it's not your problem. Because you never know when your simple act of compassion will become someone else's miracle. The next time your phone rings with a wrong number, the next time you see someone struggling, the next time you have a choice between walking away and showing up, remember Marcus. Remember that the smallest acts of kindness can echo through entire lifetimes. Be someone's 2 a.m. miracle. Show up anyway.